Welcome back to Narratives in Black. I'm your host, Amanda Shea, and in part one, Reverend Dr. Irene Monroe gave us a glimpse into her work as a theologian, cultural critic, and voice for justice. In part two, we talk about sustaining faith in the face of injustice, the intersectionality of identity and spirituality, and how radical love can be a tool for liberation. Here's part two with Reverend Dr. Irene Monroe. So I'm glad that you brought up Barack Obama, because I'm like, between the ways in which that you were brought into this world to what world you were actually raised in to where you're at now, I asked you about family, but what brought you to Boston? Like, if Brooklyn gave you so much.
Grounded me.
And grounded you, what made you uproot yourself and then reroot yourself in Boston?
Yeah, you know, I so didn't want to leave Brooklyn. I need to say this here on so many levels, but when it was very clear that I was going to go to college, because I need to just say this, I had no intentions on going to college. My idea was that what I wanted to do was to work at Macy's. And the reason why I wanted to work at Macy's for a couple of reasons, because back in the day when you were 18, now it's 21, you age out, okay? That's number one. And so when you age out, what happens is that you're no longer a ward of the state. Okay, so you need a place to stay, you need a job. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to work at Macy's is because I would have a job, I could get a discount on clothes.
Macy's was it, child.
That's right. And wait a minute now. This is the big one. Okay, talk about being seen. I can be in the Macy's Day Parade. Hello. Okay. Hello. All right.
In New York is a big deal.
That's right. And it goes down. Okay. Like folks like, is that straight? They used to call me straight. Is that straight? I work at Macy's.
I know that's right.
Okay. So that was really my goal here. But once my high school guidance counselor, I had a social work, you have a social worker if you're a ward of state, they said, look, Irene, and the people at Macy's said this, because, you know, I was hoping to make it to manager, okay, because if I be manager, like on the floor, do you know what that means in terms of clothes? Girl, I'm just too cute with myself, okay?
No, that's right.
Okay, that's all I was thinking about. And I had a cute little afro, okay?
You still cute.
Okay, I mean, okay, you know. But any event, they assured me that if I did not like college, give it at least a semester, your job at Macy's waiting for you. Okay, so I came up to here.
Oh, I love the guarantee of that.
You know, yeah, that worked for me, because that's the only way I was going to leave. I got into a lot of schools here. Thank God. I thank God for a board of education. You know, and also going to a school that helped me do well on the SATs and stuff. Because I need to say, Al Sharpton got into Stony Brook. He didn't go. That's his prerogative. But the president of the school I graduated from, Wellesley College, Paula Johnson, is a Tilden High School graduate.
Wow.
Busta Rhymes went to Tilden.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. So my point was, education is quite important, okay, and on so many levels here. But I went up to Wellesley, hated it. Okay, hated it.
See, you little youngins don't know where that came from. That's in living color. Hated it.
But it taught me something. It taught me something about whiteness that I would not have known. Okay, because I come out of a black enclave. And what I mean by this, so here we are at Wellesley, and at Wellesley, you know, I'm of that era. Even though it's the women's movement, they still want to make you proper. Women for Harvard men.
It gives debutante.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, all of that and stuff. But I'll never forget when we had afternoon tea. So Wellesley, you can experience for me that at that time cognitive dissonance, and what I mean by that, everything is white. Okay, yeah, house mother. We had house mothers, the people who worked the grounds, the people who work in the cafeteria. All these people are white. Okay, so that's how I saw people, black and white. Coming out of my experience then. It wasn't until I heard my house mother chide one of the workers for setting up afternoon tea improperly and said, oh, he's just poor white trash. Well, I was like, like, wow, that's deep. You know, because back in my era, we call white people, we made no distinction. We just call everybody a hunky. I mean, that was the term. I need to say I'm of that era. That's when I got to understand variations of whiteness, okay? Because I would think it was just homogenized. No, kind of. But that's when I understood, even before we understood this, now that when we talk about whiteness, white people have given up their, white ethnic groups have given up their white identity, okay, for white dominance and superiority. And what I mean by this is that when we talk about whiteness, I always now do these workshops like, how are you white and how white are you? And the question I mean by that, how are you white because you have white privilege, but how white are you depends on your white ethnicity, meaning when did the Jews become white? When did the Irish become white? When did the Italian come white? And see, there's erasure. And erasure breeds a kind of ignorance that we see.
Absolutely.
You know, but the tenacity of it, with which they will lock to that and still be disenfranchised. You know, because we see this. I mean, white poor people. You see this up along, you know, Maine, the Appalachian Range, up along Maine and stuff like that. Will hold on to this gossamer thin notion that I am white and not realize that how class and their white ethnicity certainly play into that.
Socioeconomic status plays a role in all of that. I can only imagine, like, going to Wellesley too is like, it's a culture shock from you. You're coming from Brooklyn, where you're saying droves of black folks are showing up in defense of Birdie, and in defense of King, in defense of Malcolm, you know, and then to come to Boston and see this entirely different culture. And like you said, to see whiteness and blackness, if you're white or you're black, at this point, we're not even going to talk about the other diasporas because we know they exist here. Even in Boston, there's this preconceived notion that there are no black people here when Boston has one of the largest Haitian populations in the country. But
erasure.
We ain't gonna talk about that, but what I will say is, like, I can only imagine as a young black woman coming into this state, what that must have felt like for you to even just step foot on Wellesley's campus.
Oh yeah. I mean, I chose Wellesley because of its I need to say, I never heard of the Seven Sisters. I got into all of them. My high school counselor said this: you can't go to Barnard because you'll be back at Tilden every day. You can't go to Vassar because you'll be back in New York and in Brooklyn every weekend. So then that left 5. I thought I was going to go to Radcliffe because that year there was this movie called Love Story, and they said there was the protagonist, one went to Harvard, one went to Radcliffe. I said, oh, okay. But then they had a subway. So I said, oh, and it's color-coded. I said, that works for me. But my social worker that day said, listen, Irene, neither her or I knew how to pronounce Wellesley. We were pronouncing Wellesley, okay? Wellesley, okay? And I go there, we stop there. She said, listen, if we stop at this Wellesley, you don't have to go to class tomorrow. Fine, let's go, okay? Let's go. I go, I see this campus, I can't believe it. Tennis courts, a lake. I kept saying, whose lake? How is this lake related to the, to the school? Listen, observatory, a botanical garden. I mean, it just all of this sort of unbelievable Shangri-La in many ways. And so I decided to go, and they were going to tell me, because I thought I was going to be a librarian. They're trying to tell me about the librarian, and I'm asking them about the lake and the boathouse. Okay, and, just all
because you now surrounded in nature too.
That's right. Okay, absolutely.
Being a city girl.
Absolutely. So that's just how I got there, and stuff. But no, did not like the experience at all. It's so interesting because I have these Wellesley alums who, because I was too ghetto. Number one, I was even too ghetto for the few black kids, the high solidity black kids. But I always thought it was interesting that, but when they needed some voice on the issue, because I was became president of the Black Student Body, they were like, well, Irene, would you speak up for us? You know, that sort of stuff. But
that's really interesting to say that you were too ghetto for even the Black kids.
That's
because
right.
that brings us back to even the migration trail and the division between Southerners and Northern Blacks.
That's right. Well, listen, you know, back in the day, listen, let me tell you, so when I was at Wellesley back in the day, and even when I first came up here at Harvard, I wouldn't have been welcome. I hate to say this, but I wouldn't have been welcome on Martha's Vineyard at Oak Bluffs. Okay. Otis Graham wrote the book.
You gotta relax.
Okay. Otis Graham wrote the book, not our kind, and I'm certainly not the kind. I wouldn't be. But what allows me to be now, what allows me to be at Oaks Bluff, even with my queer self, is because of the educational pedigree. And
talk about it.
I'm married to a doctor, okay? Because, you know, neither she nor I, because we queer, we black skinned, okay, and we loud. Well, I'm loud. She's not as loud. Okay, and what allows us on there really, and the Obamas switched it up for us. Okay, because once the Obamas started coming, you know, yeah, I need to just say
I can't even talk about that because you know I was raised in Hyannis, Cape Cod. And we go into P-Town next month. We'll have a conversation.
Right.
We'll have a conversation about it.
No, we're going to the Vineyard next month, aren't we?
Are we going to the Vineyard?
Yeah, I think we got to. Listen, well,
because Giselle got me in two spaces. I know I'm in P-Town and I know I'm in the Vineyard.
That's right.
Because you got to take the ferry to the Vineyard.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Listen, we gonna have a whole kiki. Because listen, ma'am, I remember when we were at the. Listen, now I'm about to go off script. Let me chill, because you just awoken something in me when we were at the State House in the conversation. You said, excuse me? I said, yes, get him. Get him, Dr. Irene. Okay. Wellesley.
Okay.
Because you know we having a conversation without having a conversation. Differences of, so being at Wellesley, we know what that experience is like. When did you know that you were a lesbian woman, and what was your coming out story like?
Yeah,
did it happen here in Boston, or did it happen back in New York?
No, it actually happened in church.
Girl.
Now that, you know, they say tell the truth and shame the devil. That's one of the reasons why I felt when I decided to apply to seminary and talk to my minister, I was like this: gay people love Jesus just as much as you know, straight people,
and sometimes more. Let's talk about it. And sometimes more.
That's right. And I keep saying, this is why I've written articles. I said we wouldn't have gospel music were it not for the queer folks. I mean, James Cleveland, the father of gospel. I mean, you know,
Educate these people. Educate these people.
So my point was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, it really was that, you know, one of the singers, this beautiful black sister in an orange dress, I remember to this day, was one of the lead singers. I was like, I had no clue. Because I was engaged to get married and stuff. So I was like, I had no clue. Yeah, I was, you know, so interesting. Here I'm at Wellesley, but maybe because none of the women resonated for me. And I'm also thrown in an environment of compulsory heterosexuality.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you don't see yourself. And if it's there, you just don't see yourself. Right. You know, I think Audre Lorde said that too. You know, because when you think about lesbianism, I don't look like Ellen. I'm using Ellen DeGeneres,
right.
Okay, and stuff. I don't see myself. So I'm not that. It's not that I'm in the closet. I'm just not that. If that is the representation, and then the languaging of how that terminology is defined, the the way it is subsumed by language, a white lesbian lexicon. Because we say stuff like same gender loving, which is much more fluid. Alice Walker gives us womanist, which is much more, it encapsulates the totality and the multiplicity of identities of who we are. So I came out a little late. I came out a little late.
It's all right, but you still came out.
Okay,
still
thank
came
you.
out.
Thank
Okay. You said you were engaged.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? And I'm assuming y'all did not make it down the aisle.
No, but I certainly did his wedding with his wife.
Okay, so you ordained it. I know that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You are a riot. Okay, I love this. How did that feel for you?
Oh, a blessing, because he was a sweet soul. One of the things you learn is this: if the boy's mama love you, oh, you in.
Oh, period.
Okay, and we were high school sweethearts. We were all of that. My first love. Love him to death. Still love him. And he always knew that I wanted to have a family. And see, I didn't know how you could have have children and stuff. And we had named our kids. This is before we even had sex. This is the type of family. And I knew then I had a family because, his family embraced me. They loved me. You know what I mean? And stuff. And so when I became, I need to say this, one of the reasons why, so his family had, that was solid. I have not a branch, which is why I kept all my papers, my report cards, stuff I wrote, whatever, because I wanted to be able to say to my kids, your daddy, that's your dad's family. Here they are to embrace you. I don't have family, but this is a record of who I am. And so that's another reason, again, to buck against erasure and stuff here. But
I feel like that was part of your purpose anyways, to come into the world and not, you named last night that you don't have a birth certificate.
That's right. I have a fouling report. That's right. Yeah, so you could imagine when I had to get the real ID, what a challenge.
Right, that's what I was just
when I went
ask
over to Watertown and stuff, and the woman and I had to explain this, her mouth went, and then she said, oh, you know what? I remember that episode.
Everyone keeps saying that when you say it. Yes, we had somebody at the workshop that was like, I feel like I remember that episode.
That's right, that episode, yeah. But and she was like.
So that's why documentation and fighting against erasure, I feel like, is just rooted in who you are, and that's part of your purpose.
And I feel for immigrants who are undocumented, okay? And I feel for folks who, they're fleeing. They're fleeing. You're fleeing, and I understand that. And I understand that in terms of the slave narratives. Frederick Douglass wrote himself into existence. Harriet Jacobs, incidents of a slave girl here. Maya Angelou. I mean, we've had to write ourselves into existence. And so this program is a manifestation of writing us, people whose narratives would be lost or distorted, subjugated information, bringing it to the fore. As they say, can't get no better.
I know that's right. And now because of technology and where we're at, that's why it's digital.
That's right.
We talked to a lot of Black folks on this season that named the importance of documentation and being able to tell our own narratives, like you said, because if we don't tell it, somebody else going to tell it, and they're going to tell it wrong, or they're just going to bury it, or put it up in flames, like we saw the ancestors did to the old house.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? So it's like when you see things like that, it's really important for us to name our experiences so that somebody else can see this, especially the younger generation, and know where they've come from.
Right.
Even if they're, like you said, blood thicker than water. Sometimes it's not. The stories, like you said, were sacred texts. That alone. Yeah. Just listening to that, hearing that, and being able to see myself in you, that's going to inspire me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Shirley Chisholm did it for me. I
It's
mean,
an impact.
if you running for what?
President.
And I'm saying, can you do that?
It sure can, and did, and did,
And did.
and did.
And understood that she did this so others would come behind her. And so that's one of the things I said. I don't need to see whatever I'm doing. I'm not doing it to see it in this present lifetime. I'm hoping that person that was like me growing up, that didn't have any role models, say, okay, that person. And what I liked about when my writings went on the internet, because the internet democratized voices in some ways. This is the good part of it. I'm hoping that I can reach that person who's in the closet, say in Tulu, Mississippi, saying, okay, I can't be in Boston where Rev Irene is, but I can read her columns. Okay, I can hear a word. And that's, and that's what ministry is. This is why this is ministry. It's recognizing that there's a void. I recognize that there is a void, and I need to say this here. I learned more on the streets. I've always felt that anyway. Okay, I felt that educated the institutions, but that's my hubris. Okay,
talk about it.
But I learned because I feel like on the street you got these organic intellectuals who live those integrated and intersectional lives and have to, out of necessity, manage those tips. It's not theoretical, and stuff. But I just feel again that you are using modern technology to again reach those. The tentacles go out in places you could just never imagine.
But at the same time, like even back in the day, when they had articles and papers and how they would get around, like information. That's what I'm noticing the most. It's like information is always at our fingertips at any point in time, and still ear to the streets is the best place to get all of your information.
Get everything, honey. Okay.
Because keeping your ear to the streets be knowing before anywhere else be knowing. That's right. And it's still the fastest way of communication.
Yeah. The oral tradition. I always tell people that. And I said,
by mouth.
That's right. And I said, we see how it is manifested. So I was telling some of the oral tradition. Okay, how do we see it? Chitlin Circuit. Okay. Okay. Now Black Twitter.
Listen, it's funny that you named the Chitlin Circuit because I was just having a conversation or listening to a conversation of Catherine Morris on talking about a local anonymy, which is a mini doc of BAMS Fest, and she literally was like, "An artist got to run the Chitlin Circuit." And I said, "Girl," I said, "Talk about it," because people forget. It's like almost like a degree of separation, if you will. If you weren't on it, you're not gonna remember it because you didn't experience it. But listening to these stories, I'm like, no, that's exactly what it was. And that's exactly what it is. And now here we are in 2025.
That's right.
I want to take a step back before bringing us all the way to today's time. But I want to take us back to Wellesley. And you leave Wellesley now. How did you step into ministry?
Well, okay, so after Wellesley, I worked at 17 Magazine, and I was living for the weekend, so I went to Studio 54.
Okay.
Because I was just too cute. Okay.
Listen, I heard that was a time.
Yeah,
child.
that was a time here. I wrote a recent article about it in Boston Spirit Magazine featuring Danny Harris.
Oh, I love Danny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And stuff.
I love him.
So
Walter Danny Harris.
So I always tell people that when it ends, Gloria Gaynor's anthem, "I Will Survive," still resonates in my ear here. But so we got to look at what's going on and see. Stuff is always happening because when I come up to Wellesley in '73, it's the busing issue here in Boston.
Wow.
Okay.
So you leave 73 in Brooklyn.
I come here in Brooklyn in 73.
Brooklyn in 73,
and
watching Shirley Chisholm run for president to then come into Boston for the bus.
That's right. That's right. And so I come back in 77. Okay, I'm working at 17 Magazine here. And I'll always remember that because that was the summer of Sam.
Listen.
Okay, and Elvis Presley. So I always say to people that if I weren't writing, I would think of myself as a griot because I have lived so long that you remember these world events here and stuff. But so what happened is here, and this is I need to say this, Reagan is president, okay? Something is happening, okay? So at this point when I'm at 17 Magazine, I'm hanging more with an artist group, people who work the orchestra pit at the theaters. I'm in an artsy group. I need to say I'm in a writers group. I'm in a theaters group. I'm in that whole group. Okay, that's my vibe. You know what I mean? And I belong to a runners group, but that's my vibe. But in any event, something is happening. Something is happening, and we don't know. But people are dying, and we don't have a name for it. At that time, we're calling it GRID. We finally realize, okay, we call it, AIDS, HIV/AIDS here. But my friends are dying. My friends are dying. And it reminded me of how we got Memorial Day, that at the end of the Civil War, we had black soldiers. We didn't expect white people to bury them. We did. We started that holiday. I understand. See, that's why it's important to understand your history, right? Okay? Somebody got to bury these people, because I need to say back then, even undertakers wouldn't bury the bodies, because we didn't know what it was. People thought just by touching folks would be contagious.
Get sick. Yeah.
Also, this I knew before the CDC. Long before the CDC said that the new face of the AIDS epidemic would be that of a heterosexual woman. Those of us on the street, see, I'm always rely on the street. We knew. We saw our sister friends dying. We were doing the funerals, which is one of the reasons why when I did Stories on the Stage, I dedicated to Belinda Dunn, who was here, who died of AIDS. Because I talk about AIDS back then and me being a young minister back then.
She impacted a lot of people's lives.
She certainly did. She left here making sure she informed people. But back then, I mean, it's the AIDS epidemic here and stuff. And that's where, I had to educate, these black ministers who said they quote unquote march with King. That King would be speaking up about this, number one. Number two is, it's not what Jesus would do, because people say, what would Jesus do? Well, that too, but what would Jesus ask of you to do in this moment? And just, whoo, boy, I told you that, they say, what a time, what a time. I keep thinking, things repeat themselves because we have COVID. Can I just say a little bit about COVID?
Absolutely.
We don't know, it doesn't matter what, we don't know the full ramifications of COVID, but people are dying. I know I'm repeating myself, but it gets this. People are dying again. I'm doing funerals, very few in funeral homes, most of them online. But I need to say this in terms of a demographic group, that I hope that somebody picks up the study on black trans women who have died, unknown or undocumented, of COVID, because that is a demographic group that die. And so at this point where I'm on the internet, so I'm doing deaths, I'm doing funerals online, so people knew that, just like when with AIDS, people knew I would do funerals. I didn't care what, you dead, I'm doing your funeral. I don't even want to know what you die of. You dead, you're gonna have a proper funeral, okay? Because this is a sacred life.
And it's important.
It is important, absolutely. But the point is that during COVID, again, the demographic group that was underreported are black and brown trans women. And I know this anecdotally. This is why I say the streets create organic intellectuals.
Absolutely.
Or sociologists or anthropologists, okay? Okay, I'm being honest, because I even have the documentation, because, you have to sign, the death certificate, all of this comes into play.
Why do you think that is? What was the main reason for them being the most affected?
Some of it has to do with survival sex, because you got to understand that this drug is transmitted, and we weren't wearing masks. But if you're engaging, you're not going to have a mask on. Unprotection. Not being protected.
I had no idea that was even the consensus. So you're just educating me right now.
Oh, that's a huge group. A huge group.
I mean, we know that also they were being murdered by thousands way before George Floyd's
That's right. That's exactly right.
death.
That's right.
I think the number was, I read it somewhere, it was like 4,471 Black and brown trans women were murdered.
That's right.
Before George Floyd's death.
That's right.
When you think about that,
Yeah.
and those numbers, and also the visceral reaction as the Black community had with George Floyd, what do you think is the missing denominator in all of that? Why are people in a space where they would revolt for George Floyd and not for our Black and brown trans sisters?
That's right. That's exactly right. Because we set up a hierarchy of oppression. And it's this whole notion that one group is more oppressed than the other is usually the one you identify with, and not understanding that we have multiple identities. But it also, to me, for you, they don't recognize that this is a quote from Pastor Niemöller. This was during the Nazi regime here, and we all know this quote quite well. It says that when they came for the Unionists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Unionist, and it goes down the list. When they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew, but then they came for me, and there was nobody left. And I feel that under this present administration here and stuff here, everybody's affected, but nobody is speaking up. And we operate in such silos here, and some of that is done very intentionally to what I call divide and conquer here.
Absolutely.
And stuff. But I think though for, not that maybe you did ask for your younger generation, I think what is lost here, and that is done intentionally, we're not a community. And I don't mean we have to live near each other, because but we're not a community. We're just not as cohesive as maybe we had to be under Jim Crow or had to be in the 60s. We had this illusion that we have some freedoms, not understanding that they can turn on a dime.
Absolutely. That brings me back to an interview. I would name them, but this is season 2, where they literally said the same thing, where it was like, folks banded together because they understood that they were all being attacked at the same time. Now, we don't even know our neighbors' names.
Right.
We don't borrow sugar. We'll go without before we ask. We don't stay outside until the street lights come on anymore. Yeah. The neighbors are not watching over the kids in the neighborhood.
Right. The village is gone.
The village is gone.
Right.
It's been disbanded.
Right.
For
but that
a very
was
long
done
time.
intentionally. I need to say this here. We need to look at this. And some of that is the optimism of what many Blacks felt entering mainstream here. When we, it's not, I'm not against integration, is what we called it, is the intentionality of how it was rolled out. It was rolled out to separate us from each other. I'll give you a good example of this. When I was teaching my class about power and privilege, I had to, and I always love this, I had to say, Black people own gas stations. I wanted to say something, okay, Black people own gas stations and motels, and other than just barbershops and beauty shops and just other stuff. And it's like, they give me this incredulous look. And I said, well, you have to understand, back in the day, when you were traveling, you had the Green Book. And you had to go to these Black gas stations. People owned stuff. But what happened is that with Brown, and I'm not poo-pooing Brown versus Board of Education, because I wouldn't be here in front of you. But the intentionality was to disenfranchise the Black community with the way in which they rolled it out. So let me give you an example. So Brown versus Board of Education happens. We're going to segregate, we're going to now integrate these schools here. What happened to those Black teachers? Those of us who grew up in Jim Crow America, see, it was nothing to have a Black male be your math teacher, be your science teacher, or you had Black educators. You had that you hadn't. How else? As they said, how the baby gonna get educated?
That part.
How the baby gonna read?
That part.
Okay, and these were your educators. So that is what happened. There was a deliberate diminishing of Black empowerment on all facets, economically, educationally. At the same time, Brown versus Education is trying to, and mind you, with Brown versus Education, ask all of us who are products of that, yes, we are in these white schools, but what happened to the black schools in those neighborhoods? So what happens is that you don't invest in those communities, because who's going to move into a community with young kids and the school is no good?
That
right?
part.
Right?
Because that's the first thing
That's the first thing you want to know.
If you have children and you are
That's
moving,
right.
what's the schools like
That's
around
right.
this neighborhood?
So why would you invest in that neighborhood?
You wouldn't.
That's right. So you don't have to worry about having, a grocery desert. You have helped create incrementally the desert by virtue of not having a good school system. That's different. And then when you go to these white schools, they track you. You see, because then now you're restrained, okay? Because you're seeing through that gaze of lower achievement. See, and the pedagogy that they employ at HBCUs is this: I don't care what level you at. By the time you matriculated, you're able to matriculate out in the world and go on with your life. You can graduate from these Ivy League schools and go no place, all right? And I've seen that. And so when people ask me about Harvard, okay, and I said, well, I'm in High Plantation, okay? I'm in the big house. But I also, and we see what happened to Claudine Gay, the first black female president, at best stayed there six months. It's not to poo-poo the excellence that can be there. We've seen what Henry Louis Gates did here and stuff. But let's not get this twisted here, because I've had to teach these kids. I call it sleek mediocrity repackaged as brilliance, because I've had to.
It's a word.
I've had to teach these kids who, number one, I know you have in cognitive dissonance with me standing in front of you, because anything black and female is usually your nanny. But pretty much I'm saying in my mind, sit your ass down and just look. Okay? You know how black people, okay? But that's I'm like, okay. But you will hear, like, do you know who my daddy is? And I've had to say several times, if he has performed as poorly as you did, I think he would also get an F. Get an F.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
So what keeps me grounded?
Right. I'm
Okay,
like,
what keeps me
ma'am,
grounded?
because I really want to
Okay.
but before you even say what keeps you grounded, what I love about you is that you are unapologetically you at all times and always authentic. I know that as much as I admire that, right, there are some people you probably piss off a lot, right?
Oh.
And you've critiqued homophobia and misogyny in religious spaces.
That's right.
How can these communities of faith be held at a more accountable space?
That's right.
Like, what would you like to see, and what are some of the things that we can do to hold them accountable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we could talk about the institutions like Harvard all day.
Right. But these spaces. So let me
But
give
these
you
religious
give you
spaces.
one space that I hope become open and affirming. Union United Methodist Church. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. So I come up here and I noticed something here that it's the South End at that time, before it was gentrified. It continues to be gentrified, because I also learned that it was a black and brown area.
It sure was.
Okay, and then gays.
Back Bay was too.
Is that right?
Yes, it is. They owned all those brownstones.
Really?
Ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm at a different phase of gentrification here. So the South End is gay. Okay, and Reverend Lockhart is the minister there, and at Union United Methodist Church here. And I had said to I make an appointment to see him, and I said to him, I said, hi, I'm new in town.
How can I be a disruptor?
No. I said, I know, and I explained. I said, I'm learning a lot about the South End now, because I write for these newspapers here and stuff. And I said, what would it be like to open the church to the LGBT community. I said, you know, our community needs to hear from a faith leader, da-da-da-da-da-da. He said to me, he laughed. He said, I think he said pretty much he liked my moxie or hubris or ignorance of something. He said, do you think you could change the folks in this church to be open and affirming? I said, well, I did it with my church, you know, in New York and stuff. And so he said, well, how did you do it? And I said, well, if you would just let me, you know, come to Bible study. I said, because, you know, that's where you get people. I said, that's where the real conversion. I said, by Sunday, you got them with, you know, the sermon helps get them there, but it's really the Bible study. But yeah, through Bible study, a year of Bible study. And I said to Reverend Lockhart, I said, Reverend Lockhart, wouldn't you want to be on the right side of justice? Just think of this. You're going to retire soon. Wouldn't you like that the last thing on your resume, okay? There'd be a placard for you that where all other black ministers were homophobic and misogynistic, okay? You had a change of heart, okay? You were on the right side of justice. I said, that would look pretty good while you retired back, you know, back in Florida. But I'm being facetious, but absolutely. The church was really, you know, they had some issues, but they listened. But they listened with an open heart. Union United Methodist Church is the only black, open and affirming church in New England. I was hoping that with Reverend Lockhart, then I'd go to a few others. But it's like, no, sister. Okay, no, sister. Because the 10-Point Coalition, woo, those some rough brothers. Now today, I find it very interesting. One in particular says to my spouse, tell your sweetheart I said hi. And I say, Thea, but she wouldn't do this. I said, please, in the name of God and all things holy, please give him my middle finger.
Because
is what it is.
Sir.
Okay? He was so vile. He can't even come into Cambridge. Okay? Because see, we remember him back, okay, when we were, and it wasn't even trying to make his church open and affirming or get it. It was everything about marriage equality.
Wow.
Okay, and he got that whole 10-Point Coalition. Now all of them, like we love Rev Irene and Dr. James. They say, All right. I love you, girl.
I love you too. You are just magnificent.
Back at you.
No, you really are. There's so many more things that I want to ask. But before I ask my last question, because I could literally sit here and talk to you forever. And I really would be honored to take this conversation off cameras as well. I think there's just so much to learn from you and so many things that we could put into practice to help our younger babies.
Yeah.
You know, that's like, I love adults, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's the babies for me that I feel like need the most wisdom right now. That's and they need the most guidance because they are about to take this whole thing and turn it on its head. And they're in a space right now where I feel like not only are they open, not only do they listen, but they're willing to be radical.
Yes, they are, and want to be.
Absolutely.
They want
and
to
they
be.
got the energy to do it. So like, let's talk
on that one.
Listen, because I get somebody else to do it. Y'all want to do it? Get to going. So for me, I feel like the intersectionalities, we talked about this yesterday where I'm like, I love spaces that are intergenerational. Because I think that's one thing that we're lacking a lot, especially here in Boston, where I don't see a lot of elders communicating with the youth, if you will. And shout out to Miss Ife, who I saw on Sunday, who was like, can we get an elder night for us? Like, I want to be in the club.
I love Ife.
I'm seeing all these beautiful little snacks outside, but you know, they young for me. I said Ife. She ain't wrong either, because I was like, sis, I'm not that far from you either, so I hear you. How does liberation, or I should say, what does liberation look like for you and to you when religion, gender, race, and sexuality are in conversation?
What does it look like? Okay. One is when it's in a movement towards something. Okay. So I'm hoping that younger generations, I mean, they have a lot of different issues, more added on. I mean, certainly we always have to have gender issues on the table and race, but climate change here,
Oh, talk about it.
and stuff. So I mean, I think that when you intersect religion, sexuality, see, people got to understand that church is not brick and mortar. Okay, that's our creation of it, because Jesus
Right.
didn't have one. Okay,
Right.
as a matter of fact, Jesus was out on the street.
Listen, all the time.
All the time, all the time. And I do feel like the younger generations do have that kind of energy to pick up what's happening on the street and coalesce around these various issues, and can do that. I think where elders come in, like myself, is I mean, I think we can tweak some things to give them some, give them a little more heft to their movement. But I think that one of the easiest things to do is, like you said, it would be kind of nice to know your neighbors. I mean, that it really would be. I mean, because we kind of knew that. I mean, we kind of knew that. So I mean, so there's a lot of fractured and brokenness. It reminds me of a quote by Ernest Hemingway, who I don't like, but this is a good quote from his book, Old Man at Sea. He says, "The world breaks us all, but some of us grow strong in those broken places." And we're being called to be strong in those broken places. And it's not to overwhelm us, it's to do one broken place at a time.
Rev Irene. I love just listening to you, the way you articulate, and I don't want to contribute that all to the education that you've obtained, because like you said, there are some master classes in the streets by way of Brooklyn and Boston. It's interesting because hearing you speak, there's some bloodline from the South in you. We all got a little bit something, even if we don't know it, we do. So hearing you speak, especially about just caring for your neighbors, loving on your neighbors, is such a Southern way and a Southern approach to just loving people for real. You accept people for who they are and where they're at, and not who they used to be and where they're going. And I respect that so much about you. I also love listening to your vocabulary because, ma'am, your first piece that you wrote in the first workshop, you said you had like 3 really big vocabulary words in there, and I was like, ma'am, you educate just through communicating with people. You are a plethora of information. We always name, like, when an elder transitions, a library is burned down. So it's not ironic that you wanted to be a librarian, as much history as you hold in your body, mind, and spirit. I believe you are a walking testimony. God has placed you in that park to be found so that you can find others and light the way for them to find their way home. I mean,
you're gonna make me cry, girl. Okay.
We all crying. Release is good. Release is good. You're not here by accident. God definitely put purpose in you, and you've always had a purpose, even if you didn't know what that purpose was. There are so many people that come from the walk of life that you have come from. Abandonment, not knowing or being accepted from one's family, right? To be in different homes and be raised in different ways, from living in neighborhoods to being brought up in very tumultuous and trauma-induced times where people are not only at war with themselves, but with their bodies and the government. and also at war with how they identify with their sexuality because of their religious
That's right.
beliefs. And to see, just to hear your story is to witness God's power. So I just want to thank you for coming on this season with us and sharing your story. I definitely want to bring you back for a part 2 because I feel like we have only cracked the surface of who you really are. And I want to get to that foundation because your story is sacred. And the ways in which that you navigate this world and the ways in which that you love all of us. And I watch you with Giselle and I watch you with Amir. To hear some of the stories from Craig and Ife, and for you to even bring up Belinda in this conversation, your legacy is rooted here in Boston. We love you in Brooklyn.
All right.
But we know where you stand and how you show up here in Boston. So I just want to say thank you. I'm honored to be sitting next to you. I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to witness your journey and know more and more about you. I feel not only inspired by you, but I am impacted forever by just being in your presence. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for being on Narratives in Black.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
We're going to have you back for a part 2. I promise you that. Is there anything that you would like to say to the audience before we close out?
Just thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
We are contributing to your legacy and ensuring that nothing about it is erased. And we also want to uplift everyone that you are also uplifting to ensure that our legacy is told and our stories are told in the proper light. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm not being sweet. I'm being truthful. Okay? We're telling the truth out here in these streets. With that being said, that concludes our interview here with Dr. Rev. Irene Monroe. Stay tuned for our next episode on season 2. We'll see you soon.